the High Stakes Fantasy Network. I'm your host, Greg Ambrosius, and I'm joined today by another special guest. He's none other than Jeff Erickson of RotoWire.com, who I have known for almost 25 years. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I first met you at Labor in 1998. Crazy. It's been a fun ride.
Let's talk about that, because I do remember it, and we've talked about it on a different show, but that was the 5th year of Labor, okay? Most of us had been in Labor from the beginning. It was a tight group. We got together out in Florida, and it was great. But a few guys had left in 98, and John Hunt really liked rotonews.com. I was somewhat familiar with the site. I didn't know you and Peter, of course. And you guys walked into the bar. I think we were there already. And you introduced yourselves and you're like, "Oh, Mr. Hunt, it's an honor to meet you. Oh, Mr. Ambrosius, It's a pleasure to meet you." I was like, who are these nerds? They're making us feel old. Do you remember that as well?
Oh, 100%. And I was scared to death, Greg. Because we had read John Hunt since, his column came out in Baseball Weekly. I mean, he was the man. We were excited that, our little thing took off, because you never know what was going on. I had no plans on this becoming a full-time gig. It's just like Peter said, like, hey, this is a good idea. It could take off. We could make a little bit of money, and you can be a lawyer still and all that. Because when we launched the company, when we was Roto News, I was studying for the bar. Studying for the bar exam. I passed it, but then I found myself not interviewing. This actually was happening almost concurrently.
Wow, you passed the bar too? Wow.
Passed the bar, got sworn in, and found myself not interviewing. It's like, why? Oh, I don't want to be a lawyer. I didn't like law school. I didn't like lawyers. I had a couple close friends, but I also didn't have a whole lot of self-confidence that I'd do well in that, or, that I had the networking skills and all that. So, and I loved sports. I want to work in sports someday. And then this is a little way to get a toehold in that. And it was cool that people were using our site, and it got noticed by John. It's 4 times in 1997. He did a little screen cap of us, or mentioned a column. And every time we got a mention,
for sure.
And then to get the invite to Labor, I'm like, oh my God, this was on TV. I remember watching they had it on pay-per-view, it's like ESPN sort of pay-per-view. I forget what the thing was. I was watching this grainy telecast of it, because I don't even think I didn't pay for it because I was poor, but it was like Scramble Vision. You could kind of sort of see it. But then I remember also, Kenny Lofton got traded in the middle of the Labor draft the year before and all that. And it was wild. It's like, oh, now I get to go to Florida and be in this. And, my name's going to be in Baseball Weekly. Oh, my gosh. This is crazy. And then everybody there was so nice, too. Yeah. There was a couple of gatekeepers, but for the most part, I mean, you were super nice. Lenny and Irwin, come on over here. Let me show you what I do. You guys, we love what you do. I get up at 4 a.m. to read every newspaper, but all that. And John, of course, he's very quiet, but he's super nice. Keith Law was, I got to really know Keith Law. He was the other token young guy.
Right.
But everyone was so welcoming. It was cool. We sat next to Gene McCaffrey and John Mena for our first of the 2 auctions, and that was great. It was amazing. A great time.
Yeah, I think in 97 we did it live. They had Baseball Tonight at one of the ESPN properties on Disney. And then they were right there, and we did our auction around them. It was cool. We had a crowd there. It was really neat. And it was like, boy, Labor's taken off. The 98 we got going. And so refresh my memory, because you're involved with Tout right now. I kind of believe you got a spot because Ron Chandler and a couple other guys left Labor. I'm not quite sure if that's correct, but I thought he left in 98. And part of it was
in Labor. Yep.
Yeah. See, part of it was in 98. Ron had been hassling John Hunt to do more than just the draft results, the auction results, right? He wanted John to follow it all year long and to talk about transactions, talk about trades and such like that. John felt the content was just good for the first draft issue, and then it was move on time. And his column was so important that he didn't have time to be putting 10 inches of standings from Labor and stuff like that. So Ron and a couple other guys left to do Tout Wars, and Tout Wars was actually kind of competing against Labor. We don't see them as competition today, do we? I mean, they are 2 industry different events. They're both growing the industry. They're both bringing exposure to the industry, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Tout Wars, I think, started in 99.
Okay.
Because it didn't start that first year that I did Labor. And we weren't part of the initial Tout Wars. We were invited year 2 of Tout Wars, I think. But Ron simply didn't know who we were, which is fine. And then, he actually like wrote a column like critiquing one of our notes, and I actually went back, I wrote to him and defended it in a polite manner, and we had a nice little back and forth, and that started a relationship. So that was cool. And we were free back then too. We were completely free.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Kind of you get what you pay for sort of things. But at the same time, it was the start of a relationship. But yeah, you're right. We do add, I think Labor now has 4 different leagues. Tout, I think, has 7, I want to say.
Okay.
And still not enough. I mean, you see like what Justin Mason's doing with TGFBR, or my God, Scott Fish for Scott Fishbowl. And the Razzball guys with the Raz Slam, Raz Bowl, Raz Jam. I don't know if they do Raz Puck yet. They should.
No, I don't think so.
All in the name of inclusivity. I mean, it's all trying. We're trying. Yeah, it's hard to run a lot of leagues, though, especially with the live component. As you well know, you run leagues, and you've opened the doors to everybody too. Anybody who wants in, they're in. And I think that for a while there was a whole like clash between so-called experts and the high stakes community, and now a lot of people in that are content providers play in the high stakes leagues, and it's a great fodder for content, and we love it. We've had a business relationship forever, but I love your contests. All of them, and I love the people I met. Scott Jensen and I met in my first ever live main. We were two away from each other, got to talk, and we're down the road from each other, and now he's my podcast partner on Sunday nights, and that's gotten some traction, and we're happy about that. And Scott's an awesome player, and he's really good on the podcast too, obviously, but he's a really good friend now too, and that's the thing. I've met so many friends through the NFPC and NFFC.
Yeah, and as you know, like in March, it was like a family reunion again. We hadn't seen each other in 3 years.
Absolutely.
The atmosphere. I mean, talk about that. We talk about it on our show all the time. I've been doing this 19 years for football and baseball, and I've never been at a live event where there was just so much camaraderie, so much electricity. And those first drafts when the boards were going up, everybody was watching. It was just unbelievable. And again, I think it's because of the pandemic, because we almost lost baseball because of that stupid lockout. It was unique, the live event this year in March, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I didn't get to go live the year before. You had live drafts, not as many.
Right.
And I know I was online while most of the room was live, and I had so much FOMO for that. But I just couldn't make it for, I forget the reason why, but I just couldn't be there in person. So awesome this year to be there in person. And it was really festive, and that was great. It was good to be back to normal.
Yeah, for sure. And like we were talking about, there's so many guys that are doing podcasts. I mean, like you said, Justin Mason, and there's so many guys that were there. It was a young vibe this year, I thought, within the industry. Let's talk a little bit about the live events, because Tout Wars is live in New York City. And in fact, it's at the same hotel, Stewart Hotel, the last couple of years that the NFBC is at. There's something about getting everyone together, even the industry guys drafting live, right? I mean, the first 2 years of Labor, we did it on the phone, for crying out loud. My ear is still sore from that 6-hour auction. But once we got Labor together, then it was just this camaraderie around the pool and such. And in New York, you guys go out drinking, you have dinner together and stuff. It's just a different vibe, right, when you're live.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Any draft is way better in person. Always. Just doing it live. I mean, if you can possibly make it work, I highly recommend it. I know it's almost a new normal now for some people to be able to do drafts online, auctions online, and you're used to it and all that. That's great. Zoom. The whole world got introduced to Zoom. I mean, there was a generation that already knew about it, but now everybody knows Zoom and any other video technology. So you could do it, but it's so much better just being there in person. The little jokes that we make in between picks or during picks and all that. God, I remember one Tout Yours, AL Tout Wars, Dean Peterson, was your partner in XFL. He's a big White Sox fan.
Oh, yeah.
And so we kind of just unintentionally did a round of White Sox nominations one year. Like, he brought one guy up and someone else decided to bring a White Sox up, and it just caught fire. It's like, okay, let's just keep going with it. Let's troll Dean. It's Troll Dean Day, and it
Mhm.
was one of those like no one. It was just organic. It was fun to do that.
Yeah.
Silly little things like that. I've got and I'm really good friends with Jason Gray. He's no longer in our industry. He's now a
Yeah.
scout, but I got to know Jason through just all the in-person interactions at Tout Wars and also at First Pitch Arizona. Ron does
Yep.
amazing work with that. So
Yep.
talk about bringing people together. That's a great event.
Yep.
You do that too, and everybody, if you haven't done First Pitch Arizona, please check it out. It is so awesome. The guys at Baseball HQ do that. If you're a baseball guy, there's nothing better than you can see all these top prospects in one place. It's warm and sunny where the rest of the country not so much. You get to watch a little baseball, and if you're just like a dedicated baseball person,
Yep.
there's not as much baseball conversation. Plus, you get to do some drafts. It's just play some poker at night. All these sort of fun things to do.
You
And
can
it's all a
sit
lot of fun.
anywhere in the stadium you want. Anywhere. You
Yes.
can start on the first base side, get right behind home plate, go to the third base side. This year they have a home run derby on Friday night, and then the
Yeah.
futures game on Saturday. So that's going to be a lot of fun this year. I can hardly wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be lit. It's gonna be awesome.
Okay, so let's talk about the start of you in the industry. Rotonews.com was formed in 1997 as a player notes. And here I want to just give you my thoughts. I
Okay.
was doing baseball magazine, fantasy baseball magazine, right? I wrote every player profile. I projected their stats. I did the dollar values and all. I had a stack of USA Today sports sections next to my desk from the whole year. And whenever I needed a player note, I would remember it was in May somewhere, and I would just go through. That's how I did it until 90, probably 8 when I found your site. Nobody was doing player notes at that time. Think about that.
Right.
USA Today, the team notes was the player notes that we relied on during the season, right?
Right. And those were 2 days old, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, unless it was a star player and you saw it on Sports Center, why did my guy miss this game? Who's replacing? You could read the agate type. You got Sports Weekly if you were lucky for that one. I mean, the Sports National Daily.
Right.
If you were lucky for that 1 year and a half that they're in business. But otherwise, I mean, you were scrambling. But the internet was just becoming more popular. I think 97, and my friend and the founder of Roto News, Peter Schenke, he's the one that came up with the idea. He was working for the Wall Street Journal, and he saw this company. He said, "I want to get in the internet business. We love fantasy sports. Jeff, you're good at the content. I know that the business side. I know that this news is about to explode. I know every newspaper is online now." And the mystery co-founder, he's like the fifth Beatle, Herb Ilk. He shies away from the spotlight, but he said he wanted to build a website. He was an engineer at Northwestern, a fraternity brother of Pete, and the three of us kind of came with Pete had the idea, and the three of us talked it out. In fact, in winter of 96, 97, New Year's Day, Northwestern played Tennessee in the Outback Bowl. Peter and I drove down to go see that in Orlando. And on that whole drive down, we're fleshing out ideas and all that.
Cool.
I stayed on the drive down. We stopped and stayed one night with my my aunt and uncle in Montgomery, Alabama, and then made the rest of the drive the next day. And then after the bowl game, we drove overnight back home to Chicago. But this whole time, we're just fleshing it out. I'm studying for the bar exam. I'm like, here's so you can see where my career path was going, because most people, I graduated law school in 96, in the spring of 96. Most people take that bar exam that summer right after. There's a prep course.
Yeah.
I was slacked in getting registered for the prep course, maybe not have been able to afford it, whatever. Just it was a sign that I really wanted education. So instead, I'm borrowing some other, like a really good friend of mine, and gave me like the bar prep materials. So I created my own course. I just go and study on my own, but I started building this site on the side, and a part-time job. And I'd go to their Bloomberg terminal and find news, and then send an email to Pete, and he'd post it on the site as we're building out before we launched and all that. It was crazy, but it was just, it was wild. But he came up with the idea. We soft launched in January 97. We got, we got a little bit of traction, and John somehow discovered that maybe we emailed him about it so he could check it out or something. Anyhow, he liked it. And he did like this great screenshot of us, like 4 different things, like, 4 different little features of our site. And it was just baseball news at that point in time. We really hadn't got into projections. We hadn't done any other sport yet. Started with baseball news, and boom, traffic went crazy. And it's like, so maybe we can sell internet advertising on this. We can make some money. First check comes in, like, oh, we made some money off this. Oh, wait, now we got to get more. We got to find a place to put our server. We got to start paying for bandwidth and all that. And so we just did this push and pull. Meanwhile, I gave up the ghost on being an attorney. After I passed the bar and all that, I still wasn't interviewing. But I had another buddy of mine who, his name's Jim Jones, really awesome guy in my life. He said, Jeff, if you ever don't want to be an attorney, come work for me. We need people that know computers and just are smart and go-getters. And so I don't know why I thought of me, but anyways, they were an association management company, and this was the internet division of that. And so they help like these little user groups get their members online, sign up for conferences with their website. We have a website. Check it out. We have content here. And I would help them do that, optimize their website. Search engine optimization was a thing even back then. SEO was a phrase even then. But it was Alta Vista and all these other, sites. Lycos. How do you do better on Lycos versus this one? And, Yahoo was barely a thing back then. But they had a T1 line, and they would let me work on Roto News at night. As long as I got my work done there, they didn't care they said I could stay there. So being single, like hopelessly single, I put in lots of hours there at night, and we built the site that way. It was better than my Mac and crash at home. This is back when PCs were more reliable than Macs, so that tells you how long ago it was. And it just kept on germinating and flourishing. And by mid '98, we were getting enough traffic that we really had to make a decision on our future. Are we going to get funding? Are we going to sell? Or we tried to sell it to Stats Inc. They didn't want it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I never heard that one.
For like super cheap too. We just couldn't afford the servers. Pete was making this trek all the way to like south suburb, like near Indiana border, basically all the time, and it had to be draining on him. He was putting in like 12-hour days. He was the only full-time employee for a while. This company called Broadband Sports came along, and they instead bought us, and myself, Pete, and Herb made the trip. There was a fourth guy, my old college roommate, Dave Sharon, who was the database developer. He just took the cash settlement because he had another really good job and he didn't want to leave Chicago. So it became the three of us that went out and grew the site from there. The company that bought us, called Broadband Sports, died in 2001. They kept our URL, so we couldn't be Roto News anymore, which is why we became RotoWire.
Yeah, no, it's a crazy story. Stats would have been ideal. They're right in the Chicago area, so that would have been a good mix for sure. But it's an unreal. John Hunt's column, though, if you got to mention it there, it took off, and it's interesting.
Absolutely.
It just was so powerful. Baseball Weekly it was just unbelievable at that time, and his column was so big. So within 2 years, you guys were in the top 10 of sports websites for most traffic, which is amazing. So what was that, because fantasy baseball was starting to take off, or was it because the idea of player notes was just so good with baseball fans itself? Why did it become so popular so fast within 2 years?
Sticky content, obviously. I mean, you click, you get all your notes in one place. You keep refreshing. Oh, what happened here? And you want to see some history on the player. Oh, that. Oh, you want rankings? We can do rankings. Okay, we'll do that too. And start adding more and more. And we were free too. We were ad supported for the longest time. And at that time, that paid the bills. Obviously that things changed a little bit. But had we kept on that path, I don't know. We could have still been free. I don't know. But then we had to start adding free commissioner services. And you want to talk about that's a good way to increase traffic real fast. Because you got your standings, your daily box scores. You click through on the player news on your players. It's right there, and all that. But at one point, I think we got up to number 6. We had more traffic than CNNSI.com, which was trying to portray itself as a competitor to ESPN. That was a crazy age, Greg. We were so happy when anybody, CBS or ESPN, mentioned the word fantasy. For sure. History, like, oh my God, they're talking about fantasy. I don't even care if they're talking about us. They're talking about fantasy. Because at that time, we're trying to explain to anybody what exactly is you're doing. Like, I try to tell my parents, you're keeping your law degree fresh, right? Yeah, sure. But what is fantasy? What is rotisserie? Chicken?
Right.
Plumbing? What?
Yep.
Roto? What? And so
Yeah.
just trying to explain. Now everybody, you may not everybody plays, but
Yeah.
everybody's at least heard of fantasy football, right?
Right. Right.
So it's a different era, and there's a bazillion people that are providing good content now, and there's so many
Yeah.
different. But back then, there
Yeah.
were legitimately only 15, 20 companies actually doing fantasy sports.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep. No, it definitely took off. But if you mentioned fantasy, they thought you were a nerd. They didn't understand all that. Now it is
Oh
big
yeah.
business. 60 million people are playing and such. Let's talk about the broadband sports. Okay, so you're in 2 years, right? 97 through 99. Broadband Sports buys you, internet company. You guys moved to California, though. It's not only that you sold, but you moved, right, to
Oh yeah.
California. Peter moved to California. Talk about that big leap of faith that you moved out there, and then how quickly it was snatched from you when Broadband Sports just went belly up.
Yeah, so it was a big deal. I mean, it was like, okay, well, we're gonna become it's they want to be a .com, and their whole thing was like get big, go public,
Yep.
make coin. And Broadband Sports ran a company called Athletes Direct. That was their big company. That was their flagship company. We were just an adjunct, but our
Right.
traffic smothered theirs, but whatever. And that was part of the problem is, they had all these resources dedicated to that. We will run athletes' websites for free. We'll
Yeah.
just make money off the sale memorabilia and the traffic and all that. It didn't really work out that well, but anyhow, I mean, it was a hard decision. I mean, I love Chicago. I thought I'd live there for the rest of my life. I thought, I still adore Chicago. I think it's a great town. Best city with the worst weather is what I always tell people. But
Yeah.
I mean, anything you wanted was in Chicago. You could get it. And I was just reaching a stage in my life too where I felt a little bit more self-confident, maybe had a little bit of money in my pocket for the first time as an adult, go on a date or two. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll be back in 2 to 3 years. And life has a way of ending up differently. But it was a leap of faith. But and the thing is, I had to change my lifestyle. I didn't have a car, but you need a car in California. So I bought a car for my good buddy Jeff Bookbinder, who was the guy that introduced me to my future wife. At that time, he hadn't introduced me. But it was a fraternity brother, roommate in college, good friend. And he lived in Boston, didn't want to deal with having a car and dealing with parking there. So he sold me his car. That was my first car. I had a 97 Camry. I had it for 15 years. I've had 2 cars as an adult, Greg. I'm just not a car guy, but just give me a car that runs and I'll be good. But anywho, so I drove out there on my own, stopped at my parents, went to see some friends in Dallas, and then made 2-day trek from Dallas to California. And it's like Peter and I have an apartment to ourselves. Herb actually had a girlfriend at the time that he lived with, but who became his wife. And it just we it's like, okay, I don't know anybody out here, and it turns out I maybe knew like 1 or 2 people, but it was really starting all over. It was daunting, but it was with like-minded people. And the thing is, broadband went belly up. It was run a way that we would have kind of disagreed with. So be it. But I met a lot of good people in the process, and the company did get bigger when we were out there. We did make more connections. Our traffic, when we hit that traffic peak, it was out there. They had the server bandwidth, and like 2000, like when they went belly up in 2001, we were thriving. I mean, we were really thriving. We were really kind of making our mark, and that it was a shame because, when they went dead in February 2001. It was basically Valentine's Day. It was a massacre, I guess. But because of that, getting ready for baseball draft season, and all of a sudden we had to make this. Do we keep the site running until they sell it? But then they were going to try to sell it without including us in part of the sale. How do you handle this? So we kept it running for a while. They actually paid us a little bit. The trustee did. The bankruptcy trustee paid us so they could have an asset worth selling.
Yeah.
But never once were they like, okay, we're going to give you guys some security if you go along with this deal. No, it was like, you're going to like go out and transition the company for a couple months and then you're done. Well, like, why would we agree to that?
Yeah.
And we actually kind of saw this coming. So we kind of had a little bit of a backup plan.
Yeah.
And we were just hoping to keep the URL. This is a shame. Losing the URL was a killer because we lost so much traffic. And then Roto World had launched maybe a few months before that. They launched, I think, in 2000, maybe even 99. But Roto Times launched. There were other companies, so they filled some of that void.
Yeah.
So we never regained all that traffic. And then
Yeah.
we realized, oh, it's expensive to have database servers and, running leagues and all that and handling
Yeah.
all that traffic. And we can't support that just with ad money. So it took us a year or two after that. And we finally made the switch to a pay model.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is we did a what was it? A donate button. I think there was an actual name for it. And it did so much better than we thought, Greg. We were like,
Oh, yeah.
because people are like, we want you guys to survive. I'll pay for
Yeah.
this. And, we got notes saying that. It's like, oh, I was wondering when you're going to do that.
Yeah.
It was the precursor to GoFundMe, basically, except
Yeah.
it was like, oh, maybe there's a market for people will pay for good content. Turns
Yep.
out they will, and it saved
Yeah.
our company.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
saved us. We got to that point, and we lost a lot of our traffic. We got people that were angry. I mean, we went through some tough times too. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a funder. We had an investor, a guy named Ian Chin. I think you may know Ian.
No, I don't.
He did. He did a lot of online casinos, sports casinos.
Okay.
Before they cracked down on that, but he did a lot of the marketing for them. He's got his fingers in a lot. I'm still friends with Ian to this day. I still golf with him, but he was our investor, so he kept us afloat a little bit in 2001, 2002, in exchange for a percentage of the company. And if it weren't for him, we would never have made it that far. But even with that, we were still like scraping by, making like half paychecks, quarter paychecks, skipping a paycheck here and there. 2001 was a very tough year.
Yeah.
And we lost some employees because of that. And a lot of beat writers were like, hey guys, I mean, we're skipping a paycheck this time. We're going to give you half a paycheck. And I can't live on that. And I got that. Steve Moyer, Scott Pianowski like that. And Scott has done stuff a lot with us over the years. Now he's full-time at Yahoo, but it was tough. It was really tough. And we had to learn that. But once we made, like 2003, we probably made the full-time transition to being all for pay.
Yeah.
And that changed things around. But it forced me to delay a year getting married, getting engaged a year because I couldn't afford a ring, and another year to get married and get paid for the honeymoon and all that. Things happen for a reason, though. But it was tough. I mean, I met so many good people through Broadband Sports. Made some got roots in LA, and I still live out here. I still like it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, people think, when you finally sell your company, like, oh, those guys are lucky. No, they forget the years that were lean and starting up and all that. But you guys were innovators. You started something that people copied immediately. So talk about Chris Liss. There's a lot of people who think that Chris was a founding member. And I actually thought he came on a little sooner than he did. When did Chris Liss join the company and in what role?
He was a beat writer for us at first. Like he covered the Chicago Cubs, I think.
Really?
Was his first beat.
Okay.
I think it was the Cubs. And he covered a team. Then he'd had a team here. This is probably 98 or 99.
Okay.
Probably 99, actually.
Yeah.
And then I met up with him for a beer one time because he was living in the LA area. Oh, it turns out he's also a recovering attorney. Another guy that he's someone else that just didn't want to be an attorney, and so he was doing odd jobs here and there. Eventually, through Broadband Sports, he was hired as a full-time employee.
Oh, okay.
They worked for us, but he was paid by them. But he saw along the industry as we did. And then when we saw it coming, when broadband was falling apart, we saw it, the signs were there. They'd had a series of layoffs, whatever. You could see that it was coming. So he kind of went with us. He and Tim Schuler, who you probably know, at least my partner in the NFBC. Tim is also our CFO. He has a accounting background. He was also he was actually a Broadband Sports employee at the time, but a beat writer for us. We introduced him to Broadband Sports. But when in 2001 came around, we kept them in and said, hey guys, we're going to try to do this once we made that decision. And they bought into the partnership in 2001.
Okay.
So that's when they became partners, basically.
Okay.
They were early adapters. They were early writers for us. And then Liss is obviously I sat side by side at Broadband. That's what I got to know him, and then side by side in Culver City when we eventually opened up an office.
Yeah, I met you at Culver City. I saw the office there one time when I was out there. So, all right. So
times there.
Absolutely. It was a nice place. So talk about Chris and you then. When did you guys start your radio? We know you, of course, on Sirius XM, but you had done it before you got to Sirius XM, right? Were you guys dabbling around or what was going on?
No. So I did like maybe radio hits here and there. So did he.
Yeah.
But Sirius, I started on the baseball channel. When they
Okay.
launched Sirius, it was just XM. It wasn't Sirius XM. It's just XM. It's XM MLB Home Plate.
Okay.
They launched it. Sirius was in New York. XM was in DC. XM was the baseball company. Sirius was the football company, basically.
Right.
So John Hansen was over at Sirius. I was the fantasy guy. It was fantasy focused, 1 hour with Phil Wood, veteran radio guy.
Yep.
In the DC area. I had to have a partner because I was very raw, Greg. I mean, hosting it, and I still haven't changed since then.
For an hour, you bet.
Yeah. And so he didn't know fantasy, but he knew radio. He knew baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I knew fantasy. It was very caller heavy. But I learned a lot the ins and outs of radio, and that was fun. Yeah. And then they had Chris eventually come on and do Fridays. And my oldest daughter was born in 2004, and I think that was kind of the impetus in 2005 that I needed Fridays off so I could. It was Daddy-Daughter Day.
Yeah.
It used to be Daddy Golf Day, and so I lost that for about 5-6 years, but that's fine. But then so it was Chris on Fridays, and I was doing Monday through Thursday. We weren't actually working together for a while.
Okay.
Eventually, they had to start working together. Chris actually got booted off the MLB network, but then they had another channel. They added him. He was on like late nights, and I'd partner with him at times. So we really weren't totally together on a full-time basis until they launched the Fantasy Channel, which I believe was 2009, I want to say. Yeah. Something of that nature. And that's when they pitched us. It was us and John Hansen, again, launching that channel. It was a soft launch. It was just our two shows, and then Scott Angle was added to that, and they added on from there. I think they started with 6 hours of live programming and moved it up. Actually, I think it was longer than that. I think we did 3 hours at first together.
Wow.
Then eventually more shows got added channel. We're cut us down to 2, which totally fine, by the way, with that.
Yeah.
That third hour can be tough. I mean, it's just I professional radio guys that do 3-4 hours at a time, I've got all the respect in the world for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So sounds good. So you and Chris, the partnership worked well together then on Sirius XM, right? I mean, you guys ribbon back and forth. You have different opinions, a lot of stuff. Chris is true to his opinions. He brings a lot of facts, but he brings a lot of opinions with it. So talk about that relationship on the air for basically 12, 13 years, right?
Yeah, a long time. And it was, it's great because, he's so highly intelligent. That's the thing that, he sees all these angles before other people do. He may seem like he's, out of there sometimes, but the fact is he's often ahead of the curve. And that's the thing. And he's not contrarian for contrarian's sake. He just, he hears something and he's boom. He's like, no, and he'll challenge you. I love that about it. I love it and hate it. Sometimes I'm like making a point on the show. It's like, I don't think that's true. And, you're wrong. Or, that's the benign way of saying it. He's like, you're full of it sometimes too. Yeah. But that keeps me on my guard. It keeps me keeps me sharper. And, I'm willing to push back on him too. And so it was fun. We had that repartee. He's just so smart, so funny, and so well read too. Like, he's a philosophy major. And so we always had like, this, and it was like a perfect comparison at times. So like him, we play multiple sports. I do baseball, football. I even play in one basketball league a year, my home league. I play in a hockey league. I've been in a golf league for 22 years. He has no time for golf, but that's fine. But we develop things over the years. We develop stupid little segments like Chances to Win. That just silly little segment, but it caught fire. And now I don't know if Waylon and I are going to do that. Nick Whalen is now my co-host, and we actually just we've had him on as a guest forever, and he's been hosting all of our NBA podcasts. But he and I are now co-hosts throughout the football season, and that just started this recent week. He's great. He's super sharp. So we'll see if we're going to do some of those things or we're going to create our own segments. But during football season, we just had this rhythm: Survivor this day, guess the lines, Chances to Win, all that sort of stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. But Chris and I just, you have that time together and you develop those sort of things.
Yeah, definitely. I hope you do keep some of those things. I like chances to win and such like that. So
Yeah.
in January of this year, you guys were bought out by gambling.com for $27.5 million. And Chris then retired shortly after that to pursue other things. Were you surprised that he retired at all?
Initially, but not really. I mean,
Yeah.
I always knew that working for the man was not in something he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I don't, and he's going to do his own thing. He's got his own snarky 150. It just went up yesterday, by the way. If you follow him
Yep.
on Twitter at Chris_Liss, he's tweeting that out. So guys, check that out, or chrisliss.com or realmanwood.com. Make sure to check him out. Support what he's doing. Especially if you miss him, but he just went out with a snarky 150, which is always a popular thing. But yeah, I'm not. I thought that we continue to do the show together. I thought we'd find a way to make that work.
Yeah.
That's the part that surprises me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, GDC wants someone that's all in on RotoWire, and I get that.
Yeah.
And also, he wanted to step away for a few months anyhow, just to do his thing. He didn't want to be like, I have to be tethered somewhere where I can do the show and all that. So it's been an adjustment, but we have somewhat. The lucky thing is, over the years, we've developed all this stable of other great talent.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's been a pretty smooth transition. I hope everybody feels that way. And people are going to love Nick. But yeah, it's going to be a weird football season not having Liss there doing that with me there. But I'm not surprised at the same time that Chris, doesn't want to work for a company. And GDC's been great. They've let us do our thing. Like, literally,
for sure.
I have the interaction that I need to do with them, not once are they saying you need to do more of this or anything like that. Not at all.
Great.
They've been great.
Mm-hmm.
They trust what we do. Now, I don't know if that's true for everybody in the company, but what I do my thing, and they've been nothing but supportive. So it's been great.
That's great. All right, let's talk a little bit about high stakes. I looked up your historical data. You jumped into the main event in Las Vegas in 2008. You did it again in 2009. Talk about why you decided to join the NFBC, what you saw about it. Do you remember those first 2 years that you drafted live in Las Vegas?
I remember the first year especially because that's when I met Jen Stad, and I drafted John Lackey as my first starter. And at the break, he goes, "Dude, I'm sorry," and he shows me a news update. I'm the RotoWire guy, and John Lackey had an elbow issue or something like that. That was actually how we started to talk and get to know each other a little bit. And, hey, found out he lives in Pasadena. I'm in Monrovia. I mean, we're just away from each other. I'd seen the buzz. I'd seen some things on Twitter. It was a smaller event now than it was then. Than it is now. Smaller event then than it was now, but we've always had a business relationship with you, and we'd always done advertising, done magazine stuff with you. We'd always gotten along, and I knew that you'd run a good ship. And then I think we found a way to make that work. And the show by that point, the Fantasy Channel, I think, had finally launched around then, so it was natural to talk about it on there. And the thing is, there was at that point in time, there was a lot of tension between the industry and the high stakes community. Not too many industry people had played in it.
No.
And some actually looked down on it, and vice versa. There was that. And so I thought there was a chance to get some credibility by playing in it. And it was a gamble that worked out pretty well. I met Ken Magner that first weekend. He's a great guy. Other people too. KJ Duke, I met that weekend. A lot of mainstays.
I know Mike O'Connor was in that league with you too, and he really liked you an awful lot too. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's just give people respect, and assume that they know what they're doing. They're paying their money to play. They obviously have to know what they're doing. And I learned a lot. Sean Childs is another one. In fact, I was talking about maybe some draft strategy, and I talked about maybe waiting on pitching. He goes, Are you sure about that? He actually called in and is like, I don't know if that's the greatest idea. I don't know if you looked at it a little bit more. And the fact is, there's the overall contest, and that makes things so much different than any other fantasy league that you've played in.
Right, definitely. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I'll tell you what, some of the blowback came from the high stakes industry to the people on Sirius XM. They were like, those guys don't even play in the high stakes. They're telling us who we should be drafting. Why don't they get their asses into the contest? So there was, I think, more blowback from our side, the customer base, towards the industry guys than the other way around. And I think it's helped an awful lot that more industry guys are playing right now. I think they're getting a lot of respect from the high stakes community because you're holding your own, and it's not an easy group to win in, right? I mean, the NFBC and NFFC is damn good. I know I can't compete
Absolutely.
against these guys. But it's been good. And I'm glad that you play, and I'm glad that other people are back in it, because if you're going to talk about rankings, and you do it on SiriusXM, you don't do it to promote the NFBC. You love the content from the ADPs and the draft strategies, the fab results. You use all that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's helpful. Especially because your guys are crazy, Greg. They, it's November. Let's draft. Let's go. Let's go.
I know.
I love that. That's awesome. It makes me sharper. It makes me, want to do better every year. And I hope that people feel that's that with our product. It's made me a better player. And my God, I gotta win, Greg. I haven't won a main event league yet.
I was going to ask you about that. I did look at your resume, and I do not see a win on the main event, but you are second this year. And last I looked, you were 65th overall. So is this the year?
I just lost Bryce Harper. Probably not, but
damn.
I'm gonna keep grinding though. I'm not gonna stop. Can't stop, won't stop. But hey, I looked up yesterday. It's like, hey, I gained 2.5 points in that league. Oh shoot, Kelly Ugansky gained 6, and he's the guy I'm chasing. He had Sam Long active, and he got a save. He had him active for a start, and he stole a save out of it.
Oh wow!
Like, how can I compete with that? But that's not true. You can't give up, won't give up. And the biggest thing for me too is, it's tough because we do the switch content providing wise on the channel. There's a lot more football talk now than there is baseball talk, and that's even true with our show on SiriusXM. The difference is we're allowed to talk baseball, but we can't do it, as we have to talk football too. Yeah. And that's what pays the bills. Football is bigger than baseball in terms of number of people playing in the fantasy sphere. So, but at the same time, I'm still doing 3 podcasts a week with baseball. I'm still, going to be talking every day, a little bit here and there. But it's tough keeping your eye on the ball. Especially when you have too many leagues like I do. I've got 11 leagues just on your platform alone.
Good.
12. One's Razz Slam, though, so I don't have to do any work on that. But 11 where I acted at minimum set lineups, 6 of which I'm doing fab. But I have 20 Roto leagues total. I've got 4 score sheet leagues. I've got a Stratomatic league. I mean, I got to play these leagues so I can talk about them. And, different people are playing in different ways. I need to know about it. I have a responsibility for all leagues out there. That's the other tension too. It's like what works in the NFBC may not be applicable to a standalone league, especially where you can punt categories. So I've got to deal with that too. But I like dealing with that. I mean, poor me. I get to talk about this for a living, Greg.
No, this is what you wanted. It was better than going in front of a judge, right? So it's fabulous. No, I was talking with Lenny actually last week because he was disappointed that the channel turns over to football. And I said to Lenny, it has changed. This industry has changed so much. There's now Underdog $1 million contest winners, right? There's other best ball contests. People are drafting in football in February. We've got guys drafting in February and March. So to not talk about football right now when this is the heart of drafting season isn't true to the fantasy community. It's not that football's bigger so much. It's that right now they're drafting. They need this information. They need it. Yes, you need baseball information, but there's podcasts out there now that provide that more than SiriusXM can. So I think it's a natural transition on the radio for all of us to be talking about football right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's just Lenny loses a slot because they have to run a football show. That's tough. Right. And Lenny and Andrea do great work. They're fun to listen to. And knowledgeable too. But there's year-round football now on the channel.
Right.
You look at the show before me, great show. Jeff Ratcliffe has a great football show, but it's 2 hours of football year-round.
With John Hansen before him.
Yeah, well, and John, and so you can see where the channel is. So I'm trying to actually be that voice of baseball a little bit, actually, and Ray Flowers is on a couple hours after us. He still talks baseball as much as he can. Howard Bender still talks baseball. The Fantastics guys on the weekend are still good baseball guys. So there's outlets here and there, but at the same time, it is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we partnered in 2012. We had the online championship that we started in 2009. It was growing, but not as much. We thought if we could add a promotional partner, RotoWire Online Championship would be fantastic. Peter was like, we want to do a contest, but we don't want to, guarantee the prizes and all that. We don't have the software and all. So it worked out perfectly to work with you guys. That contest has just grown and grown. Again,
Yeah.
we started $30,000 grand prize this year for football, $250,000 grand prize. It's a 12-team format. The 12-team format is so popular right now. I mean, it's been a pleasure working with you guys. We're going to continue to do it. But what are your thoughts on that 12-team and how it's just grown through the years?
I mean, it's the most common way people play, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's either 12 or 10. We love our bigger leagues, our deeper leagues. That's real man play that. But I play in a 24-man league. No, but at the same time, I mean, it's accessible. It's what
Yeah.
people look for. And the price point is right. You have different ways, and you have the individual prizes within a league too. It's a good way to dip your toes in the high stakes community. And if you want to play in the bigger leagues or earn your way up, you can.
Right.
So it's been a deal. And we have you guys on the radio every Monday, and I love that spot. It's you alternating every single week. So we have a great time with that. And it's just we talk about it all the time because we love it. It's a great idea to have this overall contest. I mean, you guys set the tone out there. You created this there's this market that was thirsty for a high stakes contest, an overall contest. Prove that I'm the best fantasy player in the planet, and anybody with from the right state can put up their money and play. And it's a shame what the hoops that you're having to jump through right now. It's weird. It's funny. It became like for a while it was the great wide opening, and now you're getting like Canada or Michigan, and they're difficult, but we'll get through it. They'll see the light eventually.
Yeah, the sad part is that they're legalizing sports betting, and they're putting fantasy pay-to-play games in those bills. So the legislators are at fault. They're the ones that don't understand those are two different industries. So Michigan, we just had to exempt them last Friday. It was terrible. We have over 200 people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars that suddenly can't play with us. Now, we're negotiating with them. We hope to get this thing resolved here in the next couple of weeks. But Ontario is another one. They're not taking any fantasy licensees. FanDuel and DraftKings are not in Ontario right now. Does that make any sense? No, it makes no sense whatsoever. But they're trying to protect the legalized sports books right now. They want them to get going. So it's a tougher industry for us, and it's why I'll probably retire to this cabin one of these days soon, because it's very, very difficult than it was when Ouija was passed in 2006. We fought very hard to get pay-to-play fantasy sports legalized. The NFLPA helped us get the language correct, and it got passed in 2006, and now we're doing this state-by-state stuff. So it's a shame. But we're going to continue to grow, and we are very proud. This is our 19th year. Next year is our 20th year for the NFBC and NFFC. We're going to go out with a blast, that's for sure. So, all right, I don't want to tie you up much longer, but two last ones. So people want to know strategies on how to win and such. So baseball is totally different. Baseball has changed so much in the last 19 years. Saves are harder. Stolen bases are harder. Wins, how do you plan for that? What are your thoughts on winning in fantasy baseball? Not so much like give me the strategy, but just a changing evolution. What kind of advice can you give people to stay on top in fantasy baseball?
Well, I mean, the thing is, the global trends matter so much more now. The ball, Greg. I mean, how many times? When we were playing in 1999, were we worried about baseball's going to do the ball? Now it turns out it was a liver ball back then. That maybe you should have been worried about that. But expansion was a thing. Steroids were a thing. There's always like the global issues that. My God, I didn't think I had to handicap that.
Right.
That's something that is a big factor, though. But people cover it. It's funny that works. But like you said, the management of players has changed a lot.
Yeah.
This whole optimization of baseball, whether it's third time through the order or use our best reliever in the seventh, that's what the situation calls for. Teams are more willing to do that. Having an opener. These are all things that we've had to account for. And, obviously it's working for teams. Otherwise they wouldn't do it. The shift is another one there, and how the decline in batting average has gone along with that there. I mean, you look at what qualified as a good team batting average in the past. Now, if you had that, you'd be like winning, the overall in batting average.
Right.
If you just had a league average batting average from 10 years ago. It's crazy. So you have to account for that. For a while we had such a huge rise in power that you had to have like 24 homers from every spot in your lineup.
Right.
Now maybe it's come down a little bit, but maybe not for good. We'll see. And that's the thing, we just don't know. So that's so important, and just try to stay on top of those trends.
Yeah.
And it's sharp. The room is sharper than it's ever been.
Yeah.
There are no secrets, it seems like, when it comes to players.
Mhm.
The StatCast era has really opened up a lot of eyes, and the optimization of knowing that data. I
Yeah.
mean, the room is sharper, I feel
Yeah.
like, and it's harder than ever.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so how about football? Football has changed, but not quite as much. You still want to kind of get two running backs, but nowadays there's the no RB strategy, and such. So football is different in baseball and its changes, but it has changed a bit. What would be a winning strategy in football, or tips that you could give for football?
Well, I mean, I think that it is become a lot more analytical. That the zero RB or the hero RB or
Right.
anchor RB or whatever you want to call it, those two strategies have become a lot more commonplace. Well, and we've had an ebb and flow. We got to a point where everyone was doing zero running back, so we
Hmm.
had like 4 teams drafting 3 receivers to start, and you're like, okay, that's no longer viable. Except now there's
Yeah.
so many more wide receivers that are talented, so maybe
Yeah.
it's kind of back into favor again a little bit. Um, I think just there's the fact that football has become so much more of a year-round thing now too.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. I mean, you run best ball contests. You
Hmm.
mentioned Underdog and what they've done. They'll run out. They'll open up the puppy. Like a $5 entry contest, and it's sold out within days. That's
Yeah. I know.
insane.
I know.
I mean, but hey, that's great. That's good
Yeah.
for us as
Yeah.
content providers, as players. That
Yep.
there's all these options. If you're obsessed with it, it's there.
Yeah.
Dynasty leagues are becoming bigger and
Hmm.
bigger. QB
Hmm.
flex leagues are becoming bigger and bigger. I mean,
Hmm.
we've
Yeah.
pestered you for years about trying to get a super flex league contest
Yep.
going.
Yep.
But I love it. There's more and more ways to play,
Yeah.
and it's all becoming popularized.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's all good. And again, we're all for the competition coming in too. I mean, what Underdog is doing is just bringing more people into
Yep.
the space. I think $5. Sure, I'll try it. Hey, I love it. Let me look at something else. So we really love it.
Mhm.
And MFL.com had started that. We bought them a couple of years ago. The reason they got out was because of all the state by state licensing. So as long as
Yeah.
people can get through that, I think it's going to be good. So, all right, one last thing. So through one of our customers, you were able to go see your beloved Bengals win at
Yes.
Tennessee this year. You went to the Super Bowl. Everyone knows I'm a big Packers fan. You're a big Bengals fan. I kept telling you to get off that bandwagon. They were never going anywhere, and then they get to the Super Bowl. So talk about the two things. One, going to Tennessee with your wife on behalf
That
of
was
Bobby.
amazing. Yeah, so
Yeah,
Bob
talk about that.
Cremuzzola is an awesome guy. He put it out on Twitter. He goes, if you guys provide content in the
Yeah,
industry, I have extra tickets for this game.
yeah.
And I never would have in my life considered that. I'm like, you know what?
I
Why
thought of
not? I
you.
didn't even realize
Yeah.
he had like sweet tickets also.
Yeah.
And I asked my wife, Kim, if he goes, you want to go? She goes, yeah, I love Nashville. So we just, gambling.com money, I guess. We used a little bit of that and, booked a flight, got a hotel, and it was actually reasonable.
Yeah.
Nashville's not it wasn't a crazy expensive place to travel in January. Who knew?
Hmm.
But it was awesome. We were there for a crazy 48-hour trip. Got to see my Bengals in person, win a
Yeah.
playoff game, second playoff win because they beat the Raiders the week before.
Yeah.
I had gone the last time I had gone to a Bengals playoff game. The Bengals got beat by the Jets and by Freeman McNeil in the
Oh
sack
my God.
exchange. I mean,
That's
that's
a
how
long
long.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a long
I went
time.
there as like a teenager, I think. And
90s.
this was before they went to the Super Bowl, if I recall correct. Yeah, it definitely
Okay.
was. And so that was pretty wild. I think it was awesome. And then we beat the Chiefs
Yeah.
an AFC Championship game.
Crazy.
At halftime of the Rams and Niners, I went and bought the tickets for the Super Bowl online. I probably should have waited, but at the time the Niners were winning, and
Hmm.
weirdly enough, even though it was out here in LA, it would have been more expensive if the Niners had made it
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
nuts, insane.
Right.
That
Right.
NFC Championship game, there was a huge contingent of Niners fans there. Maybe not a majority, but way more than you would think there would be. And I knew it would be just crazy. So I thought I was arbitraging that. Turns out that I probably could have waited and gotten a little less, but
Nah,
took
don't
my
worry about it.
daughter. It was once in a lifetime experience. Didn't
Yeah.
have to travel, didn't have to book a flight or a hotel. My
Yeah.
wife drove me there and dropped me off, so we didn't have to deal with parking. Came and picked us up, so we didn't have to deal with
Wow.
Uber or parking. Just awesome experience.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So shout out to Bobby Kramatola for sure. All right, we got one question I want to put on here, and then we'll call it a day. What's been Jeff's fantasy highlight in his career? I know you've been a 2-time baseball writer of the year. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I got into the FSWA Hall of Fame in 2014. That was really cool. No, but I'm trying to think what the fantasy highlight would be. I mean, I've won a lot of leagues. Winning Tout Wars was awesome. There's a year in prime time. I think I was third overall, and won my league there. Had an awesome league there. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years. It's hard to pick one out.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah.
When you win the main event overall, that'll be your highlight.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. Man. Even winning my individual main event league, I think, might be at this point in time. It's weird. I've done reasonably well in the online championship, but man,
at 15,
it's my white whale. It just shows that I got a lot more improvement to do.
There you go. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Jeff. I hope everyone understood your history in the industry. I learned more about it as well. It's fantastic. It's a tight-knit community. It really is. I mean, those of us that have been writers, we don't compete against each other. We're trying to grow this industry, grow the pie. We have over the last 25, 30 years. There's 60 million people playing. There's going to be more than 60 million people playing in the years to come. So, Jeff, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and we will see you. Hey, hopefully in Las Vegas. Look at your football schedule. We'll get you in the NFFC primetime for sure, okay?
Absolutely. We'll see you there.
All right, see you there. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.